Tastes good?
I like pepper.
Good.
Wait, you just don't tell me you're making that chicken.
I am.
Yummy!
And it's not called chicken, it's called vegan pepper steak. So it's like a steak. It's not like a chicken.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You excited
For what?
for this food? You like it? A little bit or a lot?
I like it because it tastes like real chicken.
But you don't remember what chicken tastes like?
Chicken.
When's the last time you ate chicken? You ate chicken?
When I was a baby.
When you were a baby?
Yeah, big vegan chicken.
Now this is fake vegan chicken. Hey guys, welcome back, and if this is your first time stopping by, I'm Rose. Nice to meet you. Welcome. Also, if you're interested in vegan lifestyle videos or just vegan cooking recipes, don't forget to hit the subscribe button because you will see new videos from the Veggie Rose channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So, in today's video, I'm gonna be showing you guys how to make a vegan pepper steak. Yes, I did say vegan pepper steak. It looks like pepper steak, smells like pepper steak, well, but not the meaty smell, like the good yummy, you know what I mean? And it tastes like it. Oh my goodness. You guys, are you guys ready? Because I'm ready. Let's get veggie. I'm gonna show you guys in this video how simple it is to make seitan, because for my last, for the seitan steak video that I made, the vegan steak, which I'll link up here, which, I mean, got a lot of positive reviews and positive feedback, but a lot of people were saying, oh, it looks like it takes way too long and it looks like too much work or whatever. Well, I'm gonna show you how simple it is to make. Like, maybe I just made it seem a little extra, but it's really, really not. So, into the blender, I'm tossing in half an onion, one pinch, largest pinch of cilantro, or like a loosely packed 1/4 of a cup of cilantro, 3 garlic cloves, and I've already rinsed these, don't worry, half a can of black beans. Oh, almost forgot, we're also adding half a cup of water. And I'm going nuts because I forgot another thing. 1/4 of a bell pepper, any color of your choice. And we blend. So we've gone ahead, blended this up already, and as you can see, we actually have a kind of like brown color. It doesn't look so appetizing, but that's actually the reason we're using black beans, so we can get this color because it'll give it that more pepper steak kind of appearance. And even though it doesn't look appetizing, it smells really, really good. So I'm just gonna pour this into a good old mixing bowl. And next, we're gonna add in our Vital wheat gluten. We mix until we can actually get our hands in there. The full recipe will be linked down below in the description box so you guys could get all of the specific measurements and all that good stuff. Once you get the hang of making this, it'll also cut back on time if you eyeball the Vital wheat gluten, because I tend to always eyeball the Vital wheat gluten whenever I'm making it like just for home. You'll get like the idea of the texture you want. And I could go ahead and get my hands in there, but at this point, when I touch it, this is how I kind of like get a estimate of if I need to add a little more Vital wheat gluten. So I'm touching it and it still feels like a little too moist. It's supposed to feel a little damp, but it's not supposed to feel like really wet. It's so hard to explain, but basically you want it to feel kind of like a bread dough, really. So you want it to be on the drier side. So as you can see, I actually like my dough for this to look a little more on the dry side like this. It doesn't feel dry, it still feels like a little sticky, but not really like wet. And I'm just gonna knead this for 4 minutes. And if you feel like it's a bit too sticky, like it's sticking to the bottom of the bowl, sticking a lot to your hands, you can add a little sprinkle of your flour. So just like literally treat this like a flour that you'd be kneading for like bread or something like that. or like a pizza crust. So I'm gonna give you guys a tip that I have learned. I realized that some people say they have seitan or Vita-wheat gluten meats, like vegan mock meats made from Vita-wheat gluten, and they say that they feel spongy. It tastes spongy, and they don't like that. The trick is, I've come to realize that if I knead it for any more or less than 4 minutes, the texture becomes a little odd. So what I like to do is, again, knead it for 4 minutes, and then I also like to make sure that my dough is like as dry as I can get it without it being like overly dry. You still want to be able to knead it. So if our dough turns out too wet, that means that the end result of our vegan meat is actually going to be kind of like more on the soggy and spongy side. And if you're playing around with the measurements and you feel like you might have added a little too much of either or, you can easily just add either a little bit more water, tiny splash of water if it feels too dry, or a tiny splash or a tiny sprinkle of the Vita-wheat gluten to make it a little more dry again. Also, I know everybody tends to ask whenever I make these recipes if they can use regular flour. This is really not a flour per se, like it's not like a baking flour or anything like that. Vita-wheat gluten is like so not like a baking flour. It's so hard to explain, but it's a completely different texture. It forms into like a meaty consistency. It gets a very, very meaty texture. So you cannot, unfortunately, supplement that or substitute any other flour for this. You have to use Vita-wheat gluten, and yes, it does contain gluten. This is what it looks like. It's very dense. I don't like it to be spongy. You see barely any holes in there. That's what we're going for. The less Vita-wheat gluten you put in it, the more holes you get, and in turn, the more spongy and like chewy that your end result will be. Okay? And now I'm just gonna roll this out. And this is not like regular flour where you would like put a little bit of flour down to keep it from sticking. If your surface is wet, it will stick. So try to make sure that you are rolling this out on a dry surface. Another thing is you can add any flavors you want into this. You can substitute the flavors out, which is why I actually went very simple in the base of this recipe, just in case you guys want to add different flavors over top. I'm adding the bulk of my like flavor profile on top of the pepper steak once it's actually steamed. So I'm just cutting it in half so that we can roll these pieces out a little better. I'm gonna roll this out as thin as I could possibly get it. And seitan could be a little hard to roll out, so you just have to press really hard so that it could actually like go and stay, because it kind of just bounces back. So you roll it out and it'll bounce back. So you have to do it pretty hard in order for it to stick to the shape. All right, so I've flattened this out as much as I can before it bounces back over and over again. And now I'm gonna steam it. So the way I'm steaming this, and I got a lot of questions asked for the vegan steak recipe, and I basically steam it the same way. I have just like a pot of water with just a little bit of water, about like 3/4 of an inch or so of water on the bottom, and we're gonna bring this up to a simmer. Actually, we're not gonna boil it, we're gonna let it simmer, and then we're gonna just place our seitan right on top of this rack. And I like to just kind of like get a little measurement of it, and right now it looks like once it starts to cook, it's gonna droop down into the water. And the last thing you want your seitan to do, if you're worried about getting a spongy texture, is boiling it or having it touch water. And I know a lot of recipes call for boiled seitan. I have always noticed that boiled seitan is just not the best texture. So steaming it is the best way to go. Also keep the water pretty low, the temperature pretty low, the heat, so you just get like a little soft steam and your water isn't like boiling up really hard and touching the seitan. You don't want the water touching the seitan. I'm just gonna roll this other one out, and we're gonna steam these guys covered for 45 minutes. All right, so this is super hot, so be very, very careful. And it's been 45 minutes, and I'm just trying to carefully remove this without getting burned. It's really hot. And I'm just gonna place this on my cutting board, and I'm gonna start cutting all of these pieces into like pepper steak size strips. Now that this is all chopped up, I'm gonna add a little bit of oil, about 2 tablespoons of oil into my skillet, and we're gonna let that heat up a little bit, and then we're gonna toss this guys in. I'm gonna add in our pepper steak. I actually usually make it a little thinner. I don't know, I wasn't able to get it thinner this time around, but usually I make it even like thinner. I roll it out a little thinner. But anyways, it works either way. Still tastes good. Ow, burn myself. All right, and what are we doing here? We're just pan frying it a little bit, and of course, this is where we really add our flavor. At this point, it's more or less, it has some flavor, but it's more or less like regular meat where you have to season it once you're actually cooking it up. So the steaming process is just to cook the seitan through. You have to at least cook it for 45 minutes to an hour in order for it to really cook fully through. So you can't skip the steaming process. I know a lot of people ask that. So I'm gonna be adding garlic powder, onion powder, some sazon. You guys might not know what that is, and sazon is like a Latin seasoning, Hispanic seasoning that you would find like in all kinds of different foods, that it just adds like color and stuff. So I make my own. I'm gonna try to remember and write down the recipe down below for you guys. And anywho, I also have some adobo powder and some cumin. The full recipe will be linked down below. And at this point, I like to add a bit of tomato sauce. And this is completely optional. This is like my own take on pepper steak. And this is kind of like how I grew up eating pepper steak. And it was a very Latin version, Latino version, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, so this is what it's looking like right now. I'm gonna add some salt and pepper to taste. Salt and pepper to taste. I like to be really generous with pepper. Nice sprinkling of salt. Yeah, we had to switch out the pan because that other pan was just not doing it. All right, next, I'm gonna cut up our onion and our pepper, and we're gonna toss that in there because of course you can't have pepper steak without onions and peppers. And I'll be totally honest, I add a little oil here and there if it feels like it needs it, because sometimes like it'll look a little too dry, and I don't want to add any water to like make the seitan soggy or flavorless, so I'll add a little extra oil. I'm adding in, our onion. I just chopped up some onion and added them in there. You can do them as tiny, as big, as you prefer. I like loads of onions in this. My kids really enjoy this. And then we're gonna add some pepper. The tomato sauce that you added in there will also help kind of like keep everything moistened up so it doesn't get too dry, and you don't want this to burn. I actually have this like at a medium heat because I'm basically just at this point making the onions and the peppers soften a little bit. All right, so this looks just about right. This is exactly how you want it to turn out. Keep in mind that this recipe will give you a pretty large amount of pepper steak, and you could also just split the recipe in half. I actually make double this amount sometimes because I know that my family really enjoys it. I, however, if I'm being totally honest, I can't eat vegan meats because they resemble too much real meat to me, especially like these like seitan ones that I make. So it's funny because whenever I'll do like a taste test cam for the vegan meats, people ask, how come you never taste the vegan meats? And I'm like, because honestly, I really don't like them. They taste so much like real meat that I just can't do it.
Hello. My name is Jade and I'm Rose's son. I like to say mommy. And I will be testing this. Now this is probably one of my favorite meat dishes from her. It's good. It kind of does taste like, has this meat flavor. I think it would taste really good with spaghettis and stuff. In fact, we do eat it with spaghettis all the time. This is just, it has that meaty feel, like not too meaty, but it's also not too not meaty. It's,
So you like it?
uh-huh.
Scale of 1 to 10. Ew, don't drop it back into the scale of 1 to 10.
Can I do 100? Well, that's what I'm going to vote. 100. Hundy.
Would you recommend it to other kids?
Mhm.
Other families?
It tastes really, really, really good.
So as you guys can see, it looks like Jaden wants to eat the whole thing to himself. And I don't mind him doing the double dipping thing because literally that's just for him and Mia and Chris because I'm not a big fan of vegan meats. However, I do know they taste delicious, but I just don't like them. So he's just going at it right in the pan. And they're gonna have this for dinner along with some mac and cheese, some vegan mac and cheese, of course. And I'll actually leave a recipe of my vegan mac and cheese right up here,
Delicious.
which is super good. And yeah, so we will talk to you guys very soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to share it so other people can see how delicious vegan food could be. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
You guys want some? I'll give you some.